We're going to look today at how to paint clay projects with acrylic paint. For this, you'll need acrylic paint, you'll need your project, you'll need a cup of water, you'll need paintbrushes, sometimes just one paintbrush, sometimes various sizes. And then if you plan on mixing paint, you'll also need a container to put the mixed paint in. When I grade clay projects, usually I grade in two different areas. The first one is the actual construction of the project, which has nothing to do with how it's painted. And then the second one is the painting of the project, sometimes the glazing, but in this case, the painting. The first thing I look at is I set the project up and I go to see if I can see any original clay. So I'll turn it on the table and see if I can see any white spots from the clay. If you wanted something white in your project and you want it to stay that color, instead of keeping it the clay, you are going to paint it with white paint. Something that I see very often when students are painting is that they'll get going and then they'll end up with all of these little white chunks places. So if you can see right here, we have a few little white lines. In order to get rid of those, there's a couple of things. You can kind of stab your brush down into those. You can get a smaller brush, or you can add a little bit of water to your acrylic paint and it'll go in a little easier. Sometimes you need to do all three of those things. Another thing that I run into a lot is I'll have someone paint an area and they don't want to get too close because they don't want the colors to overlap. So for example, with the ear, get as close as they can to the hair without touching the next section. And then they'll wash their brush and then they'll do their next color right here. When you do that, you're going to end up with a white line in between where all of your shapes change. So I would have a white line here, I would have a white line down by the hair, I would have a white line along the whole hat, I would have a white line along the nose. So instead of just leaving that area white, you're going to start with the color that is like furthest in on the project. So I wouldn't start with the hat because that's on the outside. Start with the skin because that's the furthest in. And instead of painting around so that I don't get that area, I'll just go ahead and paint that area. So right now when I'm painting, I'm getting paint on the hair, I'm getting paint on the hat, but that's okay because I'll wait till it dries and then I'll paint over it later. Okay, so right now I have paint on areas that I don't want it to be, but once that dries I can go back over it. You do have to sometimes pay attention to the color. So for example, if I were to have the skin tone a darker color like purple, and then I go to paint this white, it might be kind of hard to paint over the purple with the white. So you might want to maybe flip it and do the white first and then do the purple second. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and continue painting this. I'm gonna flip it to fast motion so that you don't have to wait too long to see the finished product.